10 minutes.
Okay, it is. So it's gonna, yeah. Okay. So we're up to Zecharia Perek Vav. It's been a while since we learned it. We did the first 5 chapters. So again, Zechariah's nevuot are a little satum, as Rashi says in the beginning of Zecharia. And some learn because the level of nevuah is towards the end is fading and it's less clear. The nevuot are less clear. So we have another nevuah. Va'ashuv, again. Va'esa enai, and I lift my eyes, va'ir'eh, and I see vehine arba markevot yotzot. There are 4 merkavot, 4 different chariots of horses going out. Miben shnei heharim, between 2 mountains. The heharim, and these mountains, hare nechoshet, the mountains of copper. So the Mabim here explains these 4 merkavot represent 4 kingdoms. Now, generally, we know 4 kingdoms that all the Nevi'im bring about. That's Bavel, Paras Umadai, Yavan, and Rome. These are the 4 famous 4 kingdoms. And many Mefarshim learned that these 4 kingdoms that we're talking about here are those 4. But the Malbim here has a different approach. And he says, it's not these 4. It's a different 2 of them are the same, but there's 2 other kingdoms we're referring to. And he says, these 4 mekavot, these 4 chariots, are going out between Shnei Harim, leaving between 2 mountains. Because there are 2 different kinds of kingdoms. There are those kingdoms which were evil and did harm to the Jewish people, and the other 2, less so. They weren't as severe to the Jewish people. The Harim are nechoshet, and these mountains are mountains of copper. So nechoshet is always a hard metal, something firm, something strong, signifying the strength of these kingdoms. But the Malbim learns the Hare Nechoshet is because Nebuchadnezzar in his nevuah, in his dream, Nebuchadnezzar, the king, when he had his vision that Daniel interpreted, right? Bavel was referred to as Zahav, as gold. And then the next kingdom, Paras, was referred to as silver. And then Yavan was referred to, Greece was referred to as copper. So this is the beginning. This is Hare Nechoshet. The Malbim says this is beginning of Greece. This is B'merkava Rishona, the first group of horses. Huh? So he let me see if let me see. He says Machut Yavan. Yeah, he says it's Greece. Machut Yavan. He says B'merkava Rishona, the first group of horses, the first chariot, which is 4. Everyone is 4 horses, he learns. Susim Adumim. They are red horses. B'merkava Shenit, and the second group of horses, Susim Shechorim, they're black. B'merkava Sherishit, and the third group of horses, Susim Levanim, they are white. B'merkava Revi'it, in the 4th group, Susim Berudim. Berudim, it translates as they're spotted. They're both white and dark. There are spots on them. Ambutzim. And Ambutzim is, he learns the Lashon Targum is the color of ashes, dark. So he said, what do these 4 color horses represent? So he says, Adumim, red horses, represent Machut Yavan, which were bloodthirsty, went and conquered the world. And he already spoke about in the beginning of Zecharia, he spoke about Yavan is going to spread, Greece is going to spread throughout the world. But this is the beginning of Beit Sheni. So this is the beginning where Greece is now going to conquer Persia and take over the world. So that he already expressed over there. But he says the red, and which we refer to as red. And here also the red horses represent Greece. He says the second group of horses, which are black, represent Rome. That's going to take over Greece and conquer the world. And he says, why red and black? Black's also a sign of war, of blood. And we find also in the Gemara many times, especially when it comes to Mar'ot, when you look at the colors of by Nida, the Gemara says the black is really blood, it's really red. Ela Shalaka, when it gets exposed to the air, it turns its color and it turns black. It's also blood. So they're both signifying of bloodthirsty nations, these are the 2 nations which did atrocities to the Jewish people. They're represented by black and red. And the idea is it brought choshech, they brought darkness to the Jewish people, brought galut, brought exile. However, Merkava Shelishit, the third group, Asusim Levanim. After Rome, right? Usually in the eyes of Chazal, Rome really extends all the way till Biat Mashiach. But the way Malbim understands is Rome kind of dissipates, and we have a kingdom that takes over after Rome. And it's Lavan, kingdom of Chesed. It's white. Represents Chesed, that they generally treated the Jews okay. In the Merkava Revi'it, in the fourth chariot, which will appear towards the Geulah, the end of exile, before the redemption of Mashiach, Susim Berudim Amutzim. We have these horses which are spotted, which means some black, some white, some people will be good to the Jews, some will not, which means a scattered kingdom. Some will be good for the Jews, some will not be good for the Jewish people. And Amutzim, we have the color of ash. And this fourth kingdom includes both different nations. Some will be good, some not. And Amutzim, the color of ash, represents Ishmael. Represents Ishmael, which is amongst this fourth group of horses, which we have nations and Ishmaelim and Arabs together. And I responded, I told the Malach who's telling me this vision, who are these four chariots? Vayan Hamalach. The Malach answers me, it says to me, Ele arba ruchot hashamayim. These are the kingdoms, these are the four corners of the earth. Yotzeot, and they're going out. Mihityatzeb al adon kol haaretz. They're going out from standing before Hashem, which means the power of these four kingdoms and the reason why they have ability to rule over the world comes from Hashem. Hashem sent them to the world. And whatever they think they're doing is, Lev Melachim biyad Hashem, the heart of kings and Hashem sent them out to the world. They're leaving Mityatzeb lifnei Hashem. Asher ba asusim ashchorim, the chariot, the Merkava of the black horses. Now here, the Nevuah doesn't talk about red. Because red ones, you already had Nevuah in chapter 1. Therefore, Malbim says, he begins talking about what? The black horses. Rome, which is going to be in the future, which we haven't yet spoken about. Asher ba asusim ashchorim, yotzeim el eretz tzafon. They're going out from the north. Valevanim. But the white ones, yatzeu el acharehem. They're going out after them. Vaberudim, and the spotted ones, yatzeu el eretz hateman. They're going to go to the south. Malbim says the south, what here referring to in this context is Eretz Israel. Because eventually the Amutzim are going to go conquer Eretz Israel. We said this Amutzim referring to Ishmael, and they're going to go wage war against Eretz Israel. That's the south. His Amutzim yatzeu, and these Amutzim, these horses, which he says are the color of ash, which represents the Arabs, Ishmael, yatzeu, they're going to go out v'vakshu lalechet nitalech ba'aretz. They're going to go out into the world, meaning conquer the world. Vayomer, they're going to say, lechu, hitalchu ba'aretz. Let's go out and conquer the world, v'talachna ba'aretz. And they're going to go out and spread around over the world. That's going to be the desire, to conquer the world. Vayazek, and Zecharia says, while seeing this vision, Vayazek, I cry. In a sense, they made me cry out. Right? Vayazek, oti. Right? They made me cry out. Vaydaber alai lemor, and the Malach spoke to me saying, Re'eh hayotziim el eretz tzafon. See this group, this caravan that is going out to the north, to the land of the north, which we're referring to Rome. So he cried out from the destruction of Rome, what Rome is going to do. They're going to destroy the Beit Hamikdash and have all these atrocities against the Jewish people. And he cries out from the pain and the sorrow. But at the end, they gave me consolation. Be'eretz Safon, in land of Safon, because ultimately Rome will also be subjugated and destroyed. So the Malbim explains here that we're discussing here these nations, the Arabs are going to try to go out and conquer the world. And the Berudim, the spotted ones, which represent different nations, some more pro-Jews, some more against. And they're going to go out to fight the Ishmaelim in Eretz Yisrael, the Arabs around Eretz Yisrael. And they're going to wage war against one another. And he says this already described in the Nevuot of Yechezkel. They'll wage war against one another. But he doesn't elaborate here on the details of these wars. But these are the nations of the world. So basically, there's going to be a time after Rome, Malbim says, like my time. He lived in the late 1800s, where there's a time of Levanim. Generally, the nations are generally okay to the Jewish people, at least where he was. Nazi Germany didn't arise yet. We didn't have World War I yet in his days. But in a sense today also, you can call him, we lived in Susim Levanim, if you want to say that. But the horizon, we seem to have spotted already horses. We have horses which are black and white spotted throughout the world. So this is the first Nevuah of Yechezkel, representing the four kingdoms, that two, Yavan and Rome. And interestingly enough, he says there's two new kingdoms here, one which represented by many nations, both, and one represented by Ishmael. Then here another prophecy, another Nevuah. Lakoach met hagola. Now Zecharia is in Eretz Yisrael, and he's there in the beginning of the rebuilding of the second Bet HaMikdash. And he says, Lakoach met hagola, go take from the exiles, those who are still in Babel. Mechaldai, umetuvia, umediadai. Take from Chaldai, Tuvia, and Yadai. These are three people that are found in Galut. Ubata ata bayomahu, and go this day. Don't wait, go this day. Ubata bet Yoshia bet Zephaniah, and go to the house of Yoshia ben Zephaniah. Similarly, Zephaniah here is Zephaniah Navi. This is Yoshiahu's son. Asher ba'u mi Babel, which just came to Babel. So don't wait for them to come to you. Go out to them. Velakachta kesef v'zahav, and take from them gold and silver that they brought with them from the Galut from Babel. Ve'asita atarot, and I want you to make two crowns. Make a golden crown and a silver crown. Ve'samta, you should place it berosh Yehoshua ben Yotzedek HaKohen HaGadol, on the head of Yehoshua ben Yotzedek, who's going to be the first Kohen Gadol here for Beit Sheni. I want you to place, the Malbim learns, the silver crown on his head. V'amarta elav, and you should say. Now here, the pasuk doesn't mention about where you put the gold crown. You'll see Zecharia, the way the Malbim understands it, because the golden crown was not to be placed on anybody's head. Who was supposed to be the leader of the Jewish people? Zerubbabel at that time is the leader of the Jewish people. He's Pachat Yehuda, the governor of Yehuda. And but Zerubbabel, don't put it on his head, because he's not really a king.
Two crowns that was given to Zecharia and to put on either Zerubbabel and...
So some learned that actually the crowns, one was put on Zerubbabel's head, one was put on Yoshua ben Yotzedek, Kohen Gadol. But the Malbim learns, the pasuk doesn't mention anything about putting a crown on Zerubbabel's head. So it says only one crown was put on the head, and that's the Kohen Gadol. The other crown was not put on anybody's head. He wasn't king. He said, we'll see. This is what Hashem said, saying, Hine ish tzemach shemo. There's a man whose name is Tzemach. Who is that referring to? Zerubbabel. If you look at the word Zerubbabel, Zeru Zera, plant, the seed that sprouted, the seed that sprouted from Babel. So Zerubbabel is just a Tzemach. It's just the seed that's sprouting. In the words of Malbim, he exists in Koach. The power of Mashiach is within Zerubbabel, but he himself is not Mashiach. The power exists in him. So he says, Hine ish Tzemach shemo, umitachtav, from under him, yitzmach, the Geulah will sprout out, ubana et echal Hashem, and will build the future Bet HaMikdash, which means from his descendants. V'hu yibneh et echal Hashem, his descendant will build the ultimate Bet HaMikdash, the third Bet HaMikdash, V'hu and he will lift up the splendor of Hashem in the world. V'yashav u'mashal al kiso, and only his descendant would sit and rule on a chair and being Melech Israel. V'ya kohen al kiso, and there the Kohen Gadol will also sit on his chair as a leader of the Kohen Gadol. V'atzad shalom tiyeh ben shenehem, and there will be peace between them. So Malbim explains, he's alluding to during Beit Sheni, there was never peace between the king and the Kohen Gadol. During Beit Sheni, when the Hashmonaim took over and they fought off Greece, they took the kingship for themselves instead of giving it to a descendant of Yehuda. And even after they lost, the Hashmonaim ultimately lost it, right? The king themselves would sell the kehuna to the highest bidder. So the king didn't respect the Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol didn't respect the king, right? And there was never shalom between them. He says in the future there'll be a perfect harmony between Melech HaMashiach and the Kohen Gadol. They were working in tandem, in unison together. And that's what these two crowns represent. The crown that will sit on the head of Melech HaMashiach and the crown that will sit on the head of the Kohen Gadol. But at this point, the crown is not being placed on the head of Zerubbabel because he's not the ultimate redemption. He's just a pachat, he's a temporary ruler. The Geulah will not come directly from Zerubbabel, but rather from his descendants. And therefore that crown is not put on anybody's head yet. But in the future, there'll be shalom between them. There'll be perfect harmony between the Kohen Gadol and Melech HaMashiach. The atarot and these crowns, it seems like temporarily we only put the crown on the Kohen Gadol, because he is the right Kohen Gadol at this point, as opposed to Zerubbabel wasn't Melech. But ultimately, what do you do with these crowns? Tiyeh lechelem ultuvia ulyadaya ulchem bet Zefania. Now, if you look at the names, Chelem probably is referring to Cheldai, the group, the three that came up, the three Jews that came up from Babel, who brought the gold and the silver with them to donate to make these crowns. So he says, in a sense, you're giving these crowns back to Cheldai. Here he refers to as Chelem. To Tuvia, it's the same name. Med Yedaya, and here is Lidaya, same person. Ulchem bet Zefania, that's Yoshia ben Zecharia. He usually calls him as Chen. So these crowns will be for them. Lezikaron behechal Hashem, a remembrance in the Hechal Hashem. And these crowns will sit up high, golden and silver crown, a zikaron for these three people who donated them the Hechal Hashem. And here's one of the people bring this mekor, that a person donates something, you're allowed to put their name in a Bet Knesset. We don't consider that haughtiness, having their name up. Some say because you have to acknowledge they did tzedakah, it encourages other people to give tzedakah. In this way, these two will be lehechal Hashem, remembrance of these people who donated the gold and silver over these crowns, and they would sit there on the hechal Hashem, remembrance for the future, when the Kohen Gadol and the Melech will work together and wear these crowns. U'rechokim yavo, and in the future, from a distance, they will all come. Ubanu be'echal Hashem, and they will build the final Bet HaMikdash. V'yiratem, you will know ki Hashem tzedakot shedachani alechem, that Hashem sent me to you. V'haya im shamoa tishmu b'kol Hashem elokechem, if you will listen to the word of Hashem, which means the Jews will gather together and come up together to Eretz Yisrael and listen to Kol Hashem, that's when the Geulah will come. And he was hinting, Zecharia again is hinting. Here, most Jews didn't come up. They all still stayed in Babel. But if the Jews will all come up together now, in unison, and listen to the word of Hashem, Mashiach can come now. As he warned many times before, but unfortunately the Jews didn't come. Most Jews stayed behind. They didn't come up to rebuild the Bet HaMikdash. And therefore, this is going to be just a temporary redemption. And the Geulah that is not till later in the future, when all the Jews will gather together in Israel, will be Shomea B'Kol Hashem, and that's when the final Geulah will be in the future. And this is chapter 6 of Zecharia. Okay.